Welcome, everyone, to a webinar outlining the proposed updates in the DLC's Network Lighting Controls Technical Requirements. My name is Levin Knock. I manage DLC's technical requirement for lighting controls and the qualified products list that meets that requirement. I'll be leading today's webinar about proposed changes in the first draft of the revised technical requirement that was released last week. It's on the designlights.org website. I'm joined by DLC's Technical Director, Gabe Arnold, who will manage the questions and might jump in as needed. This webinar will be recorded and then posted online. You'll be on mute, so please type any questions into the question pane. We'll answer some in writing during the presentation and then discuss some questions at the end. Here's a brief reminder of the purpose of this program. DLC is helping energy efficiency programs across North America promote lighting controls with the qualified products list of products that meet the technical requirement that we'll focus on today, plus the various other resources and tools mentioned here. Our goal is that all of these parts of DLC's program will come together to support full-scale adoption of advanced lighting controls to save more electricity.
Hey, Levin, I don't think we're seeing the slide change.
Oh, thank you very much. I will go back to, let me click, let's see. So now if I change, what slide are you seeing now, Gabe?
Now I see you and me.
Okay, great. Sorry about that, everybody. We will now proceed with the next slide about logistics and then about the DLC programs, which all comes together to support energy efficiency. And now we're caught up. Okay, I apologize for that technical difficulty. Now, because network controls are evolving so quickly, we update the technical requirement every year. We've just begun that process that will be finalized in June, when all products currently on the list will need to re-qualify under the new requirement if possible. If that's not feasible, then they will have 1 year's grace period to remain on the list under the old requirements before either upgrading or dropping off the following June. Here's a timeline of the public process that will lead to the new requirement. The draft was released last week. Comments will be due towards the end of February. The Controls Summit will happen in the middle of March on the 15th. Then, based on input from the first draft and the summit, we'll create a second draft and release that in April. Comments about that second draft will be due in May, and then we'll release the final version on the 1st of June. And now I'll give an overview of the main changes that we've proposed in this first draft. The main topics I'll discuss today are the changes in the requirements to qualify products, DC and PoE, security, and energy monitoring. In addition, there are a few changes in reported capabilities that are optional. Up until now, the technical requirement has excluded systems that use DC power or power over Ethernet because there were no DLC qualified Luminaires available because we did not have a category for Luminaires. We're going to change that in 2018 to update both the controls list and the Luminaire list to include these systems. One of the big changes we're proposing is in security. You might ask, what's so important about security? Well, the thing is, most utilities do not like taking risk. The utility programs that DLC supports want to ensure that the lighting control systems they help pay for have some level of cybersecurity protection. Imagine if one of a utility's customers gets hacked through the lighting system that they promoted and provided financial incentives for. The utility would take this event very seriously and might respond by no longer offering rebates for that system or even for other network lighting controls. Remember when Target's credit card records got hacked through their HVAC controls? All it would take would be a few headlines about hackers attacking lighting control systems to make all the rebates and incentives for lighting controls just poof, disappear. That could dampen the lighting control market for years. We need to get out in front of this. It looks like our best chance to do that is with a newly developed ANSI standard for cybersecurity of network-connected products. ANSI UL Standard 2900-1 covers cybersecurity of network connectable products. It applies to network connectable products such as networked lighting controls that shall be evaluated and tested for vulnerabilities, software weaknesses, and malware. It was approved as an ANSI standard last year in July 2017. It tells how to evaluate a product's vulnerability to security threats. In other words, it's a test that a testing organization such as UL runs on network devices, where they analyze the system for vulnerabilities and then they try to hack it. They also provide consulting support to help designers pass the test by improving the product. Both integrated circuits and software are built of many building blocks or modules. Many of these building blocks come from publicly available open sources, and some of them have known vulnerabilities to hacking. One big part of the test is to take an inventory of all the different building blocks, and then to check whether any of these blocks are known to be vulnerable to attack. Each different component of a system can be tested. Basically, any device that can connect into a network can be tested. UL 2900-1 is the general basic standard for network connectable devices. A few sectors have created a modified version of the basic standard to apply to their particular field: healthcare, industrial control, and life safety. In theory, the lighting industry could do something similar. RAB Lighting has already gotten their lighting control system qualified with UL 2900-1, and UL is talking with several other manufacturers of lighting control products. You can learn more about this in a recording of a 1-hour webinar at the link there that introduces UL 2900 in relation to lighting systems. These slides will be posted online after the webinar, along with a recording of this webinar, if you don't have time to write down that link. You will also be able to learn more about this standard at the upcoming DLC Lighting Control Summit, where we'll have a representative from the ANSI UL committee provide an overview of the standard. I'll talk more about the summit a bit later. We propose to report any components that comply with UL 2900-1 in 2018, starting in June. Then next year, in 2019, we propose to require all systems to comply with ANSI UL 2900-1. Or, if a lighting system specific version of the standard is developed, then potentially systems can comply with that instead. We look forward to your written comments on this proposal and discussing it further with you at the DLC Lighting Controls Summit on March 15th. Next is energy monitoring. The energy monitoring capability is reported on the QPL, but is not required at present. For this year, version 3 in 2018, we propose that in order to claim this optional capability, the system must include direct energy measurement. So what do I mean by that? There are two different ways that network lighting controls monitor and record the amount of energy used. The old way goes by various names, including lookup tables, correlated, and calculated. With this method, the system measures the on-off and dimming states of each luminaire, and then calculates the amount of energy that was used based on the assumption that you know the wattage of each luminaire or each lighting circuit. The accuracy of this method is completely dependent on the diligence and the accuracy of the person doing the commissioning, who manually enters the value of each fixture wattage into a lookup table in the software. This method is typically seen in older components because integrated chips for energy metering were expensive until recently. The state of the art is to measure the current and voltage that was actually used by each luminaire or lighting circuit and record a log of the results over time. That's known as energy metering. These new systems with built-in energy metering enable efficiency programs to get an accurate account of energy usage without the expense and hassle of installing temporary data loggers on circuit breakers, and particularly inconvenience for everyone, the contractor, the utility, and particularly the occupants. So here are some concerns with lookup tables or the calculated method. First of all, it seems like in the supply chain, there's very rarely anyone who is responsible for or gets paid to enter the wattage information. So it is often simply left blank. There's also the question, even if someone did fill it in at original installation, over time, if luminaires get swapped out or modified, who maintains it and updates these tables? How accurate is the data? Even if data is all entered, is it a nominal value? Does it account for the exact driver? Does it account for parasitic losses? There's a report coming out later this year, possibly this spring, from Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, where they found a considerable margin of error from these challenges. So DLC further proposes, in looking ahead and helping everyone plan ahead for the future, that in next year's version 4 update, then energy monitoring would be required. That would go into effect in June 2019 with a 1-year grace period until June 2020. Standards are not yet complete for energy monitoring in interior systems around accuracy, precision, and a data model. However, at the Controls Summit this March, we'll have an update about some efforts that are now underway to develop standards and could be developed by next year in 2019. Here are the systems on the QPL at the moment. The products are listed in the center column, and the columns on the right show what kind of energy monitoring they offer. As you can see, the 14 systems at the top of the table all use energy metering, and the 10 systems at the bottom do not. There's also some overlap where several systems use both. If we remove the lookup table or calculated methodology from the energy monitoring definition this year, and then we require energy monitoring next year, then those 10 products at the bottom will need to either upgrade by June 2019 or else use the 1-year grace period to apply under the old requirements until June 2020. Last, and probably least, we're adding a new reported or optional capability for scene control. This is especially important because it can support a basic level of interoperability between different control systems. We're also adding subcategories for the reported capability of luminaire level lighting controls, or LLLC, to report luminaires, kits, and lamps. Up till now, we've mostly reported just the luminaires. And we'll probably add a few changes in the second draft to support interoperability, but they're not quite ready yet. Also, I wanted to mention that later in 2018, we plan to create an online version of the Controls QPL, similar to the current online version of the solid-state lighting QPL. And now we pause for a brief promotion. The DLC Controls Summit is coming up on Thursday, March 15th in sunny San Ramon, California. Last year, we had fun collecting input from everybody in the room, and over the past year, we've taken several initiatives based on the feedback we got. We're going to do it again this year, and we hope that you will attend. The morning will be devoted to utility programs for lighting controls. We'll see the results from a recent NLC survey of rebate programs, what's working and what's not. We'll hear from a few utilities about how their programs are set up, how they're running, and what challenges they're seeing. We're expecting to see from two different models of two contrasting ways to set up programs. We'll also hear about DLC's training program, the results to date, and plans for the future. Then later in the morning, we'll all brainstorm about how to address some of the biggest challenges in program design to get rebates and incentives flowing more freely. In the afternoon, we'll have presentations about energy monitoring and security where we can explore more in depth these topics that I just touched on today. And each one of those introductions or presentations will be followed by large group discussions. Those are the two main topics, but we'll also have some time to review any of the other changes. And so if you're not already registered, please register soon. There is a limit on a max of 2 representatives per organization because the room is kept to around 100 people so that we can engage in these large group discussions. And a final reminder, here's where we are. We're just at the end of January. Now, please, over the next few weeks, if you'd like to make any comments about this draft, please go online to designlights.org and you can download the comment form. And from there, you can make a comment about each change that's DLC proposed. And also you can propose other changes if there's something you'd like to see different. And as I mentioned, the summit is coming up in March, and we're then heading towards the final release in June. And with that, I will turn it over to Gabe Arnold to see if there's any questions that you want to share with the group.
All right, thanks, Levin. I'd like to encourage everyone here, if you have any questions, to go ahead and type those into the question pane of the webinar software. I'm going to go through a few of the questions that we've received thus far. So we had one question come in asking why the ANSI UL 2900-1 standard and why not the NERC CIP, as most of the utilities are familiar with NERC CIP. And then there was a further comment that this person provided suggesting that we take a look at some international standards, IEC 62443 and or NIST SP 800-82. So we have some familiarity with some of those suggestions. And I think one of the challenges that we have is we're looking for a security standard that we can apply at the product qualification level. And so if it was a standard that was written around practices that needed to be implemented at a customer site to ensure security, that wouldn't really be something that would fit well into what we're trying to do here. But nevertheless, we would ask in your written comments, if you're aware of any alternative standards that we should be considering, to please suggest those to us, and we will absolutely research those further. We had a question, Levin, asking if you could go into more detail on the luminaire level lighting control changes and what you're proposing to report there.
Yes. So there are available luminaires and kits, and pretty soon there will be TLEDs or tubular LEDs that will all in some form or other be basically luminaire level controls. There are definitely kits that have the controls and the photo sensor and the occupancy sensor all pre-installed in the factory in the kit. So we've just proposed to make these a searchable field. So if a specifier particularly wants a kit as opposed to a new luminaire, that'll be easier for them to find. And likewise, we're going to do something with tubular LEDs, although that's a little less clear at the moment because most of the tubular LEDs, some of them have a photosensor, most of them do not have an occupancy sensor because when the tube is buried up inside a luminaire, you don't really know what the occupancy sensor is seeing. So they generally are coordinated with an external occupancy sensor, which does not meet the current definition of luminaire level lighting controls. And so that is, I would say, an open question at the moment, how exactly we treat that.
Okay, thanks, Levin. Another question. This one's about energy monitoring, and the question is, does current and voltage have to be measured, or is amperage measurement an applicable method with some calculations acceptable? Levin, I think the answer to that is, as currently proposed, we are not specifying that both current and voltage need to be measured, and only current would be acceptable. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. You could, if you had the nominal voltage value, that would, what we're expecting is that the error might be a few percent, but it's not going to be the 20 or 40% that might come from the correlated method.
Okay, so if you have any comments about whether DLC should require measurement of the voltage as well, or whether we should not, please provide that in your comments, and always helpful for you to explain to us why you think that as well. Okay, there's a comment that the Control Summit time zone is incorrect when you register, so we will get that fixed right away. It shows it starting at 5 a.m. on the West Coast, so I think the start time will be 8 a.m., so we'll get that corrected. There's a question regarding energy monitoring. Is there a frequency requirement, i.e. data must be taken every 15 minutes, must be stored for a minimum of 1 year? Right now, we do not have a requirement around the frequency of measurement. We do report on our QPL what the frequency is that a particular system is utilizing. I will say that one of the standards efforts that you'll hear about at the Control Summit in March is looking to define requirements that may potentially include frequency. I think they'll include accuracy, may include precision, may include frequency for different use cases of energy data from lighting systems. So when we get around to requiring energy monitoring in systems as proposed with this draft in 2019, we would hope that these standards may be in place, in which case there may be requirements that reference the standards and would include a frequency requirement. So that's where that currently stands. Okay. Here's one more that just came in. Are you planning to use ANSI standards C136.50 and 52?
I think they might be energy monitoring for exterior systems, but I'm not sure about that.
I think that may be correct. And I think that, okay, that's correct. It's one of the comments that we just received. So I know that those standards are being considered and how these other standards are being developed. And one of the things that we'll be hearing about at the Control Summit when we receive this standards update, I believe is also going to be reporting out on the status of the 136.50 and 52 standards and how those might interrelate or support the development of these other standards for interior systems. All right, here's a question. Can you speak to the proposed modifications to support interoperability of multi-vendor systems?
I can take a short shot at that, and then Gabe, see what you have to add. Okay. So right now in the current application, we have lots of questions about various aspects of networking and about connections with a building management system and an API so that one lighting control system can talk with another. It turns out that some of the features of those connections are important to support interoperability, and other features are less important. So we are planning to revise the application and the QPL to focus on the aspects that will help lighting systems play well together. That's a big reason why we've added scene control this year. Is that at a very basic level, that's one way for independent lighting systems to communicate a little bit, to be able to call out to one system can ask the other system to play scene number 3, for instance. And so that's at a very high level, similarly with the BMS. So most of these modifications are more likely to be at the detailed level of exactly what we ask in the application and exactly how we lay out the QPL to focus on the parameters that are important for interoperability and probably to let go of some of the other parameters that are not as important. Dave, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that's good. I think, that is what the near-term plans are. I will comment that we are working on some longer-term objectives for how we can further support interoperability with this QPL and requirements. And this is a first step that Levin's described, so stay tuned on that. We'll be talking a lot more about it. Okay, we have a question. I missed when the online version of the QPL is coming. When's that coming, Levin, currently?
Yeah, so that's currently planned for, we hope to get it in the 2018 calendar year, but it will be after the release of V3.
Yep. Okay. Well, I think that's it. Thank you very much, Levin. Thank everyone for attending here today, and please do download the documents online and get familiar with them, and provide us your comments in written form on February 26th, and we look forward to seeing as many of you as possible at the Control Summit in San Ramon on March 15th to talk more about this. Enjoy the rest of your day.